The space station was bigger than anything G1 had ever seen. It floated in the darkness like a small moon, with lights blinking across its metal surface. This was Nexus Station, the heart of the Galactic Council. Ships from hundreds of different worlds came and went like insects around a lamp. Some ships were smooth and silver. Others had strange shapes that hurt the eyes to look at. All of them belonged to alien species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. G1 stood at the window of the human ship and watched the station grow larger. She was 47 years old and had spent 20 years working as a diplomat. She had solved disputes between Earth colonies. She had prevented wars over mining rights. She had made peace where others saw only anger. But this mission was different. This time, she would speak for all of humanity to beings who thought humans were little better than children. Behind her, Commander Minho checked his weapons for the third time. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and scars on his hands from old battles. His job was to keep the diplomatic team safe. He did not like this place. Too many exits. Too many aliens. Too many things that could go wrong. "Do you think they will listen?" Dr. Yuna asked. She was the youngest of the team, barely 30, with bright eyes that always seemed to be studying something. She knew more about alien cultures than anyone else on Earth. She had learned 17 alien languages. She had read every book humans had about the Council. But books could only teach so much. "They will listen," Ji-won said. "Whether they will hear is another question." The ship docked with a soft bump. The door opened with a hiss of air. On the other side stood 3 aliens. They were tall and thin, with skin like purple leather and eyes that had no whites. They wore robes that seemed to shift colors in the light. These were Vorash, one of the oldest species in the Council. "Ambassador Ji-won," one of them said. Its voice sounded like wind through pipes. "You are expected, follow, no welcome. No ceremony, just cold words and colder eyes." Ji-won smiled anyway. She had dealt with worse. They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls showed images of alien worlds. Some had 3 suns. Some had water that was red instead of blue. Some showed creatures so strange that Yuna gasped and pulled out her camera to take pictures. Minho stayed close to Ji-won, his hand never far from his weapon. The meeting chamber was enormous. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. Seats rose in circles one above the other like an ancient theater. In those seats sat beings from 300 different worlds. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some seemed to be made of light itself. All of them turned to look when the humans entered. In the center of it all sat Premier Dakran. He was Vorash like the guards, but older. His skin had faded to almost white. His eyes were deep and dark like holes in space. He had led the Council for 300 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had crushed rebellions and destroyed worlds that refused to obey. Now he looked at Ji-won the way a man might look at an insect. "Humans," he said. The word sounded like a curse in his mouth. "You come to seek our protection. You wish to join the civilized galaxy. But what do you offer? You are young. You are violent. You have barely left your own star system. Yet you claim worlds that do not belong to you. You fight among yourselves. You destroy your own planet. Why should we allow such a species to spread to the stars?" Ji-won walked to the center of the chamber. She did not hurry. She did not show fear. She stood in that spot where everyone could see her and began to speak. "You are right," she said. "We are young. Our oldest cities are barely 6,000 years old. You have civilizations that counted their age in millions when we were still living in caves. But being young does not mean being worthless. A child learns. A child grows. A child asks questions that adults have forgotten to ask." She turned slowly, looking at all the aliens watching her. "You say we are violent. Yes, we have had wars. Terrible wars. Wars that killed millions. But we learned from them. We built a united government. We ended hunger on our world. We cured diseases that once destroyed whole cities. We did this in just 200 years. How long did it take you?" Some of the aliens shifted in their seats. Premier Dakran's eyes narrowed. "You say we claim worlds that are not ours," Ji-won continued. "But who decided which worlds belong to whom? We found empty planets. We built cities there. We made gardens in the desert. We brought life to dead rocks. If that does not make them ours, then nothing does. Enough." Premier Dakran's voice boomed through the chamber. "We did not invite you here to listen to speeches. We called you here to give you terms. You will withdraw from the disputed systems. You will limit your population. You will allow council inspectors on your worlds. You will submit to our laws. In return, we will protect you from hostile species. We will allow you to trade with council worlds. These are our terms. Accept them or leave. We reject your terms, G1 said quietly. We come as equals seeking partnership, not as subjects begging for scraps. We will not surrender worlds we built with our own hands. We will not limit our growth to make you comfortable. We will not bow. The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in hundreds of languages. Some seemed angry. Others seemed shocked. A few seemed pleased. Minho stepped closer to G1, his hand now openly on his weapon. Premier Dakrin raised one long hand and the chamber fell silent. Then we have nothing more to discuss, he said. You may attend tonight's reception as planned. Tomorrow you will leave and not return. The council will decide what to do about humanity without you. That evening, the reception hall glittered with lights and filled with music that sounded like water falling. Aliens of every type moved through the crowd. Some talked in small groups. Others ate food that looked beautiful and smelled strange. G1 wore her finest formal dress and smiled and spoke to anyone who would listen. Many would not. But a few did. A few seemed to respect her words from earlier. You are either very brave or very foolish, a voice said beside her. G1 turned to see a female alien with silver skin and large dark eyes. My name is Thren. I am Kelhari. I have watched the council for 60 years. No one speaks to Premier Dakrin that way. No one refuses his terms. Then perhaps someone should, G1 said. Perhaps, Thren agreed. But be careful. Dakrin does not forgive insults. And he does not forget. Later, G1 was asked to give a speech. She stood on a raised platform where everyone could see her. She spoke about cooperation between species. She spoke about building a better future together. She spoke about hope. And then the world exploded in light and pain. The energy beam hit her in the chest. G1 fell backward, her eyes wide with shock. She tried to speak, but no words came. The crowd scattered, screaming. Minho was running toward her, his weapon drawn. Yuna was shouting something. But G1 could not hear anymore. The world was fading, growing dark. Her last thought was of Earth, of her home, of the blue sky and green fields, of humanity. She hoped they would understand. She hoped they would remember. Security forces swarmed the area. They grabbed the assassin, a Vorash wearing council security colors. They shot him before anyone could ask questions. They surrounded the remaining humans and forced them into a sealed room for their own protection, they said. Minho knelt beside G1's body and closed her eyes. His face showed no emotion, but his hands shook. Yuna stood against the wall, her face white with shock. Around them, the station continued its normal operations as if nothing had happened. As if a woman had not just been murdered in front of thousands of witnesses. Premier Dakrin appeared on every screen in the station. He spoke of tragedy. He spoke of rogue elements. He spoke of sorrow. But his eyes were cold and his voice was empty. Everyone watching knew the truth. This was no accident. This was a message. The message reached Earth 6 hours later through quantum communications. The video was clear. The murder was undeniable. And humanity watched as their ambassador fell. The galaxy had made a mistake. They had killed the wrong human. They had killed the one person who wanted peace. Now they would meet the ones who wanted justice. The video played on every screen across Earth, in homes and offices, in streets and parks, on ships in space and in stations orbiting distant planets. Billions of humans watched as Ambassador G1 fell. They watched her eyes go wide. They watched the light leave her face. They watched her die while alien security forces did nothing to help her. The video played again and again. News channels showed it every hour. People could not look away. This was not just a woman dying. This was humanity being told to stay in its place. This was the galaxy teaching them a lesson. The anger started slowly. First came shock. People stood in silence, unable to believe what they had seen. Then came grief. Memorial services filled churches and temples. Flowers piled up at government buildings. Children asked their parents why someone would hurt the kind woman who only wanted peace. But grief turned to rage. The rage burned hot and bright. People took to the streets by the millions. They carried signs. They shouted for justice. They demanded action. From Earth to Mars to the distant colonies, humanity spoke with one voice. The Council must answer for what they had done. In the Capitol building of the United Earth Government, President Hyun-woo sat at a long table with his military commanders. He was 60 years old with white hair and tired eyes. He had fought in the colony wars 30 years ago. He had seen friends die. He had made peace when others wanted revenge. But now peace seemed very far away. "Show me," he said. Dr. Taman stood and activated a hologram. He was the director of human intelligence and knew more secrets than anyone else in the room. The hologram showed intercepted communications between council members, messages in alien languages translated into English by human computers. "We have been monitoring council communications for 6 months, Taman said. We knew they did not trust us. We knew some wanted to limit our expansion. But this goes deeper. Premier Dakrin personally ordered the assassination. He wanted to send a message. He wanted to show other young species what happens when they refuse to bow." The hologram changed to show more messages. Plans for the assassination. Discussion of which weapon to use. Debate about whether to make it look like an accident or send a clear message. They had chosen to be clear. "They think we are weak," Fleet Admiral Soman said. She was a thin woman with sharp eyes and hands that never stopped moving. She had spent 40 years in the military, rising through every rank. She had planned the defenses for every human colony. She had prepared for war even while hoping for peace. "They think one death will make us surrender. They do not understand us at all." "How many ships can we field?" President Hyunwoo asked. 2,000 warships, Somin replied. Another 1,000 support vessels. The Council has over 50,000 ships across 300 species. In a straight fight, they outnumber us 25 to 1. But it will not be a straight fight, she continued. Council ships are old. Their tactics are older. They have not fought a real war in 1,000 years. They rely on numbers and reputation. We have been preparing for war our entire existence. Every human ship is built for combat. Every human officer has studied warfare. We are smaller, but we are sharper. She brought up battle simulations. Humans won 3 out of every 4 scenarios. Not because they had better weapons, though they did. Not because they had more ships, which they did not. But because human commanders thought differently. They took risks. They adapted quickly. They fought like their survival depended on it because it did. "What about allies?" someone asked. "Many council species are not loyal," Taman said. "They stay because they fear the alternative. Some have contacted us secretly. The Kelhari in particular. They have suffered under council rule for generations. If we show strength, others will join us." President Hyunwoo was quiet for a long time. The room waited. Outside protests continued. People chanted for justice. They chanted for war. "We did not want this," the president finally said. Ji-won went to make peace. She believed we could find common ground. She died believing in diplomacy. Now we must honor her memory by doing what she could not. We must show the galaxy that humans cannot be bullied. We cannot be intimidated. We cannot be murdered without consequence. He stood. "Prepare the fleet. Recall all ships to defensive positions. Contact our people on Nexus Station. We are bringing them home." The rescue mission launched 12 hours later. 3 fast ships jumped into the Nexus system and docked with the station before security could respond. Commander Minho and the diplomatic team were extracted in under 10 minutes. Dr. Yuna carried a data drive with every piece of intelligence she had gathered. When Council forces tried to stop them, the human ships jumped away into faster than light, leaving only a message behind. The message was simple. "We are coming." The Council responded with an ultimatum. They broadcasted it across the entire galaxy. Premier Dakrin appeared on screen, his white skin seeming to glow with anger. "Humanity must surrender the assassin's killers," he said. Though Council security had killed the assassin, Dakrin blamed humans for inciting violence. "Humanity must withdraw from all disputed systems. Humanity must accept Council authority or face the consequences. We give you 1 week to comply," Dakrin said. "After that, the full might of the Council will fall upon your worlds. You are children playing with weapons you do not understand. Submit or be destroyed." President Hyunwoo did not wait a week. He did not wait a day. 6 hours after the Council's ultimatum, he made his own broadcast. Every human world received it. Every human ship played it. And the Council, watching carefully, heard it too. The president stood at a podium with flags behind him. To his left stood Commander Minho in full military uniform. To his right lay a flag-draped coffin. Ambassador Ji-won had come home. "My fellow humans," the president began. His voice was calm but hard as steel. 6 days ago, Ambassador Ji-won went to Nexus Station to seek peace with the Galactic Council. She went in good faith. believing that different species could find common ground. She went hoping to build a better future for all of us. She went with an open hand and an open heart. He paused. They murdered her. Not in the darkness, not in secret. They murdered her in front of thousands of witnesses. They murdered her on camera for all the galaxy to see. They murdered her because she dared to say that humans deserve respect, that we deserve to be treated as equals, that we will not bow to tyrants. His voice grew stronger. The council calls us children. They say we do not understand the consequences of our actions. They are wrong. We understand perfectly. They killed our ambassador. They killed our peacemaker. They killed a woman who never raised a weapon against anyone. And they expect us to accept this. They expect us to surrender. They expect us to kneel. President Hyunwoo's eyes blazed. Humanity does not kneel. We tried peace and they answered with murder. We offered partnership and they demanded slavery. We extended our hand and they cut it off. Very well. They have made their choice. Now we make ours. The Galactic Council, through the deliberate and premeditated murder of Ambassador Ji-won, has committed an act of war against humanity. Therefore, by the authority granted to me by the people of Earth and all human colonies, I formally declare that a state of war now exists between humanity and the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, all human space is closed to Council ships. Any vessel entering our territory will be destroyed without warning. We recall all our diplomats. We freeze all trade. We sever all ties. To the Council I say this: you have awakened something you do not understand. You see us as young and weak. You think numbers alone will crush us. You believe we will break when faced with your ancient power. You are wrong. Humanity has survived ice ages and plagues. We have survived world wars and near extinction. We have climbed from caves to the stars, and we will not be stopped by beings too old to remember what it means to fight for survival. We did not choose this war, but we will finish it. We will have justice for Ambassador Ji-won. We will have justice for every species you have oppressed. We will show the galaxy that there is an alternative to your rule. And when this war is over, you will remember that humanity is not to be trifled with. The president placed his hand on the coffin. Rest well, Ambassador. Your work is done. Ours is just beginning. The broadcast ended. Across human space, military forces mobilized. Ships powered up their weapons. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. The war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. High Admiral Vexus stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the fleet spread out before him. 200 ships from 12 different species, cruisers and destroyers and carriers, each one larger than anything the humans could build. This was power. This was might. This was 10,000 years of galactic dominance made real. He was tall even for a Vorash, with skin the color of deep purple and eyes that had seen 100 battles. He had crushed pirates in the Outer Rim. He had put down rebellions on 20 worlds. He had never lost a battle. Not one. How long until we reach Nova Terra? He asked. 4 hours, Admiral, his tactical officer replied. The officer was young and nervous. This was his first major operation. Good, Vexus said. When we arrive, broadcast the demand for surrender. Give them 1 hour to evacuate. Then we destroy their orbital stations and any ships that resist. This will be quick. The humans will learn what happens when children challenge their elders. He turned back to the view screen. Nova Terra was humanity's newest colony. Only 50,000 people lived there. It would be an easy target. After it fell, the other colonies would surrender without a fight. The war would be over in a week. What Vexus did not know was that Nova Terra had been preparing for this moment since the diplomatic crisis began. Colonel Borum had turned the planet into a fortress. Every colonist had trained in emergency procedures. Food and water were stockpiled in underground bunkers, and the orbital defenses were ready. Captain Jisoo watched the Council fleet approach on her sensors. She was 32 years old, and this was her first command. The UNS Defiant was a new ship, built with the latest technology. It was smaller than most Council ships, but faster and meaner. Around her, 29 other human warships waited in silence among the asteroids that circled the system. Active camouflage holding, her tactical officer said. They do not see us yet. Wait for my signal, Jisoo said. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart pounded. This was it. The first real battle between humans and the Council. Everything they had trained for. Everything they had prepared for. It came down to this moment. The Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They moved toward Nova Terra like a slow wall of metal and fire. Vexus's flagship led the way, its weapons already charging. "Broadcast the surrender demand," Vexus ordered. His image appeared on every screen in the Nova Terra system. "Humans of Nova Terra, you are ordered to evacuate this planet immediately. You have 1 hour. Any ship that remains after that time will be destroyed. Any defense platform that powers up will be destroyed. This is your only warning. The Council has spoken." The response came not from the planet but from the orbital stations. All 12 of them powered up at once. Their weapons locked onto the Council fleet, and a voice answered Vexus. It was Colonel Borum. "This is our home. We built it with our own hands. We will not abandon it because you tell us to. If you want Nova Terra, you will have to take it. And we will make you pay for every meter." Vexus smiled. "Foolish humans. Brave but foolish. Destroy the stations," he ordered. The Council ships opened fire. Energy beams crossed the void. The first shots hit the shields of the orbital platforms and made them glow bright white. But the platforms held, and they fired back. Then the asteroids began moving. Captain Jisoo gave the signal and 30 human warships dropped their camouflage. They appeared on the Council's sensors all at once, emerging from hiding like wolves from the shadows. The Council fleet tried to turn, tried to respond, but they were too slow. The human ships struck hard and fast. They used tactics the Council had never seen. They jumped in microbursts, appearing behind enemy ships for just seconds, firing, then jumping away. They launched swarms of missiles that moved like living things, dodging defensive fire and striking weak points. They coordinated their attacks with computer precision, 3 or 4 ships focusing on one target until it died, then moving to the next. The Council fleet was in chaos. Ships collided as they tried to maneuver. Species that had never trained together could not coordinate. Commanders gave conflicting orders, and the humans kept hitting them, kept killing them, kept dancing through their formation like sharks through fish. Jisoo's ship jumped directly behind Vexus's flagship. The jump was perfect, timed to the millisecond. For 3 seconds, the Defiant had a clear shot at the flagship's engines. Jisoo did not hesitate. Every weapon on her ship fired at once. The flagship's shields collapsed. Its engines exploded. The great ship began to spin, powerless and dying. Before it could recover, Jisoo broadcast a message to Vexus. "Hi, Admiral Vexus, your ship is crippled. Your fleet is broken. Surrender now and we will allow you to evacuate. Refuse and we will show no mercy. You have 1 minute to decide." On his bridge, Vexus stared at the view screen in shock. How had this happened? The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to run. They were supposed to die without a fight. But instead his fleet was burning. Instead he was the one facing defeat. Pride made him stupid. "We do not surrender to children," he said. Jisoo sighed. "Then die like the fool you are." The Defiant fired again. This time the shots went straight through where the shields had been. They hit the reactor core. Vexus had time for one final thought before his ship exploded in a ball of white fire. Without their commander, the Council fleet lost what little coordination it had. Some ships tried to fight. They died quickly. Some ships tried to run. The faster ones escaped. But most just sat there, stunned and confused until human ships appeared beside them and demanded their surrender. The Battle of Nova Terra lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 73 Council ships limped away into faster-than-light travel. The other 127 were destroyed or captured. Debris filled the space around the planet like a field of broken metal. Humanity lost 18 ships. 823 soldiers died. It hurt, every loss hurt, but they had won. Captain Jisoo stood on her bridge and looked at the wreckage. She felt no joy, only tired relief. They had done it. They had proven humans could fight. They had sent a message of their own. "Send a message to Fleet Command," she said. "Tell them Nova Terra holds. The enemy is defeated. We are ready for orders." Down on the planet, people emerged from their bunkers. They looked up at the sky where the battle had been fought. They saw the debris burning up in the atmosphere like shooting stars. They knew what it meant. Earth had protected them. Humanity had won. The footage of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Every species with communication technology saw it. They saw the mighty Council fleet arrive in force. They saw it get torn apart by a smaller human force. They saw the humans fight with tactics and precision that shocked even the oldest military minds. The Council tried to suppress the footage. They tried to call it propaganda. They tried to say it was edited or fake, but too many species had independent sensors. Too many had watched it happen in real time. The truth could not be hidden. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had suffered a major military defeat. Species that had feared them for generations began to wonder, if humans could defeat them, what did that mean? Was the Council really invincible? Or had they just never been challenged before? On Nexus Station, Premier Dakrin watched the footage in silence. His hands shook with rage. This was not supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to break easily. They were supposed to serve as an example to other young species. Instead, they had humiliated the Council. Instead, they had shown themselves to be dangerous. Instead, they had become a real threat. Dakrin made his decision. He would not make the same mistake twice. He would not underestimate the humans again. He would gather the full might of the Council. Every ship, every species, every weapon, and he would crush humanity so completely that no one would ever dare challenge the Council again. The war changed everything. What began as a single battle at Nova Terra spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Human ships appeared in systems that had known only Council rule for thousands of years. They struck fast and hard, hitting supply depots, communication arrays, and military installations. Then they vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Fleet Admiral Somin had learned from history. She knew humanity could not win by fighting the Council's kind of war. They could not match numbers. They could not hold territory against an enemy that could bring overwhelming force. So she did not try. Instead, she did what humans had always done when facing a larger enemy. She adapted. Human ships moved in small groups, never more than 10 together. They hit targets across a dozen sectors simultaneously. Council forces rushed to respond but always arrived too late. By the time they gathered a fleet large enough to matter, the humans were already gone. The Council had another problem. After 10,000 years of peace enforced by fear, their military had grown soft. Ships were maintained poorly. Officers had bought their positions through politics rather than skill. Training was a formality. Most Council soldiers had never seen real combat. They relied on their reputation to keep order. But reputation meant nothing to humans who had just watched their ambassador murdered. Reputation did not stop missiles. It did not deflect energy beams. It did not save ships from being torn apart by enemies who had studied warfare their entire lives. 3 months into the war, General Suho led an assault on Arcturus Prime. The mining colony had been seized by the Council 20 years earlier, when the previous owners refused to pay unfair taxes. The colonists, a species called the Kelhari, had been forced to work as slaves in their own mines. General Suho was 40 years old with scars on his face from the colony wars. He had fought his way up from private to general through skill and courage. He did not like slavers. He especially did not like slavers who claimed to be civilized. His ships jumped into the Arcturus system without warning. The Council garrison had 50 ships. Suho had 30, but the Council ships were cargo haulers with guns attached. Suho's ships were built for war. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it ended, the Council garrison was destroyed or surrendered. Suho's ground forces landed on Arcturus Prime and freed the Kelhari workers. The workers stared in disbelief as their chains were cut. They asked who the humans were, why they had come, what they wanted in return. "We want nothing," Suho told them through a translator. "We fight for the same reason you would if you could. Because slavery is wrong. Because tyrants must be stopped. Because someone has to stand up to bullies." The Kelhari did not understand at first. In their experience, no one did anything without expecting payment. No one fought for principles alone. But the humans helped them rebuild. They shared food and medicine. They taught them how to defend themselves. And they asked for nothing, word spread. Other oppressed species heard what happened at Arcturus Prime. They began to contact human forces in secret. They offered intelligence about Council movements. They asked if humans would help them too. Some even asked to join the fight. Agent Nari was one of humanity's best intelligence operatives. She had infiltrated the Council bureaucracy 6 months before the war began. She looked human enough that minor surgery and fake documents let her pass as a member of a species that traded frequently with the Council. She worked as a low-level clerk in the military logistics department. No one paid attention to clerks. That was their mistake. Nari spent months copying files, recording conversations, and mapping out the Council's command structure. She learned which species were loyal and which were just pretending. She found the locations of secret shipyards and weapons facilities, and one day she discovered something that made her blood run cold. The Council was building a superweapon, a massive battle station equipped with a beam that could sterilize an entire planet. They called it the Purifier. It was meant to be used on Earth if humans refused to surrender. Construction was 70% complete. Nari sent the information through encrypted channels. Fleet Admiral Soman received it and immediately began planning. The battle station was hidden in a remote system, guarded by 300 ships. It would be the most heavily defended target humans had attacked. But it had to be destroyed. Captain Jisoo was given command of the mission. She had been promoted after Nova Terra, and now led a battle group of 50 ships. It was not enough to fight 300 defenders. So she would not fight them. She would outsmart them. The human fleet approached the system in 3 groups from different directions. They broadcasted false signals to make each group look larger than it was. The Council commander saw what appeared to be 3 fleets of 100 ships each. He divided his forces to meet all 3 threats. That was exactly what Jisoo wanted. Once the defenders split up, the 3 human groups combined into one force. They punched through the weakest section of the defensive line and headed straight for the battle station. The battle station tried to bring its main weapon online, but the weapon was still being installed. It could not fire. Jisoo's ships swarmed around it like ants on a giant, targeting the reactor cores and weapons systems. The station's shields held for a while, but they were designed to stop a few large attacks, not hundreds of small ones. The Council defenders realized their mistake and tried to return. But by the time they regrouped, the battle station was already dying. Its reactors overloaded. Explosions rippled across its surface, and then it broke apart, torn into pieces by its own power. The battle lasted 18 hours. Jisoo lost 12 ships and 2,000 soldiers. But the Purifier was gone. Earth was safe. The Council's plan to threaten human worlds with extinction had failed. 6 months into the war, cracks began showing in the Council alliance. The Kelhari homeworld formally withdrew from the Council and signed a defense treaty with humanity. They were the first but not the last. 3 more species followed within weeks. Others remained neutral, refusing to send ships against the humans. Premier Dakran watched his empire crumble. Species that had obeyed for generations now questioned his authority. Some openly defied him. Others simply stopped responding to orders. The Council was supposed to be eternal. It was supposed to be unbreakable. But humans had found the cracks and were prying them open. In a desperate attempt to restore order, Dakran ordered mass conscription. Every Council species was required to provide more ships and soldiers. Some complied reluctantly. Others refused. When Dakran threatened punishment, several species withdrew from the Council entirely. The humans were winning not because they destroyed every Council ship. They were winning because they offered something the Council never had: freedom. Every species they liberated became an ally. Every world they freed became a base. Every battle they won inspired others to join them. Counselor Thren had watched everything unfold. She had seen Dakran order Jiwon's murder. She had watched him lie about it. She had seen him drag the galaxy into war rather than admit his mistake. And she had seen species suffer because of his pride. She made a choice. Late one night, she copied every file she could access. Military plans, secret communications, records of Dakran's crimes, everything. She sent it all to the humans through channels she hoped were secure. Then she waited to see what they would do with it. President Hyunwoo reviewed the intelligence from Thren. It confirmed what humans had suspected. The assassination was ordered from the top. The war was started deliberately. The Council was not defending itself. It was trying to crush a species that dared to want equality. He held a press conference and released everything. The recordings, the orders, the proof. He broadcast it across every channel to every species in the galaxy. Now everyone knew the truth. The response was immediate. Dozens more species withdrew from the Council. Protests erupted on worlds across the galaxy. Council representatives were expelled from planets they had ruled for centuries. The ancient alliance was falling apart. Dakran had one option left. He gathered what remained of the loyal Council forces around Nexus Station. 5,000 ships, 200 species. It was still the largest fleet ever assembled. If humans wanted to end this war, they would have to come to him. They would have to fight at the heart of Council power. And Fleet Admiral Soman, reading the intelligence reports, smiled grimly. Because that was exactly what she intended to do. 1 year after the war began, two fleets faced each other in the space around Nexus Station. The Galactic Council had assembled 5,000 ships. It was the largest military force in living memory. Ships from 200 species crowded the void, their weapons charged and ready. Around them, the station's ancient defense platforms powered up for the first time in 1,000 years. Premier Docrin stood in the council chamber and looked at the tactical display. This was his last stand. If he won here, the rebellion would end. The surviving humans would surrender or be destroyed. Order would return to the galaxy. If he lost, 10,000 years of council rule would end. Everything his species had built would fall. He would not lose. He could not lose. The numbers were on his side. 5,000 against 3,000, ancient power against upstart youth. It did not matter that humans had won every battle so far. This time they faced the full might of the galaxy. This time they would learn their place. On the other side, Fleet Admiral Somin reviewed her own forces. 3,000 human ships plus another 1,000 from allied species. The Kalahari had sent their entire fleet. The Thren people contributed what little they had. Dozens of other species who had suffered under council rule now stood with humanity. Somin was 62 years old now. Her hair had gone completely white during the war. She had lost friends. She had sent thousands to their deaths. She had made choices that haunted her dreams. But this was the last battle. Win here and the war would end. Lose and humanity might never recover. President Hyunwoo's image appeared on every ship in the human fleet. He looked tired, but his voice was strong. 1 year ago, they murdered our ambassador because she dared to speak of peace. They thought killing one woman would make us bow. They were wrong. Today we stand at the gates of their empire. Today we demand justice. Today we show them what humanity really means. Fight well, fight bravely, and remember why we are here. The human fleet advanced. The council fleet moved to meet them. For a moment, the void was silent. Then both sides opened fire and space itself seemed to explode. Energy beams crossed millions of kilometers in seconds. Missiles swarmed like angry insects. Ships maneuvered and dodged and died. The scale was beyond anything anyone had ever seen. Thousands of ships fighting across a space larger than entire solar systems. It was not one battle, but hundreds happening simultaneously. Captain Jisoo led the vanguard. Her tactics from Nova Terra had been studied and copied by every human commander. Now she used new ones. Her ships moved in coordinated patterns, covering each other, focusing fire, breaking through weak points in the council formation. Where she went, council ships died, but the council had numbers. For every ship Jisoo destroyed, 2 more took its place. Human shields began to fail. Human ships began to die. The battle turned into a grinding match where both sides bled, and neither could gain advantage. On the second day of battle, General Suho launched the ground assault. Troop carriers punched through the defensive lines and headed for the station. Council fighters tried to stop them, but human escorts kept the path clear. The carriers docked with the station in a dozen places and soldiers poured out. The fighting inside the station was brutal. Corridors became killing grounds. Every room was contested. Council security forces had the advantage of knowing the layout. Human forces had better training and equipment. Progress was measured in meters, paid for in blood. Suho led from the front as always. He took a team of special forces and pushed toward the council chamber. That was where Docrin would be. That was where this war would end. On the third day, something unexpected happened. In the middle of the battle, Counselor Thren began broadcasting on all frequencies. She showed recordings of Docrin ordering the assassination. She showed evidence of his other crimes. She showed how he had lied to the galaxy and started this war. This war is not about defending ourselves, Thren said. Her voice reached every ship on both sides. This war is about one being's pride. Docrin killed a diplomat to prove his power. He has led thousands to die to avoid admitting he was wrong. I am Kalahari. My people suffered under his rule for 300 years. Today I stand with humanity because they fight for something the Council forgot long ago. Justice. The effect was immediate. Multiple Council species broadcast messages of neutrality and pulled their ships back. Others went further and switched sides entirely, turning their weapons on former allies. The Council fleet began to disintegrate. Docrin watched his empire collapse in real time. Species he had ruled for centuries abandoned him. Ships he had commanded refused orders. Everything was falling apart. But he still had his personal guard. He still had loyalists. And he still had the station itself. "Seal the council chamber," he ordered. "No one enters. We hold here until reinforcements arrive." But reinforcements were not coming. The fleet was beaten. The station was falling. There was no one left to save him. General Suho's team reached the sealed doors of the council chamber. Explosives would take too long and make too much noise. Instead, they used cutting torches. The metal glowed red and then white as the torches worked. It took an hour, but finally the door fell inward. Inside, Dakrin waited with 20 guards. They opened fire immediately. The firefight was short and savage. Human soldiers fell. Council guards fell. When the smoke cleared, only Dakrin remained alive, wounded and surrounded. Commander Minho stepped through the door. He had fought his way through the entire station to reach this moment. For a year he had carried Jiwan's memory. For a year he had waited for justice. He stood in the chamber where Jiwan had been murdered, where she had tried to make peace, where Dakrin had ordered her death because she refused to bow. "You should have listened to her," Minho said. "She came in peace. She offered partnership. She wanted to build something better. You killed her because you were afraid that if one species could say no to you, others would follow. You were right to be afraid." Dakrin tried to speak, but no words came. He saw his death in Minho's eyes and knew there would be no mercy. Not for someone who had shown none. Minho raised his weapon. "This is for Ambassador Jiwan. This is for every human who died in this war. This is for every species you oppressed. Your reign is over." The shot echoed through the chamber. Premier Dakrin fell and did not rise again. News of his death spread through both fleets instantly. The remaining council forces lost all will to fight. They surrendered ship by ship. By sunset on the third day, the Battle of Nexus Station was over. The cost had been terrible. Humanity lost 600 ships and over 50,000 soldiers. Allied species lost hundreds more. The space around the station was a graveyard. But they had won. Captain Jisoo sat in her damaged ship and looked at the wreckage. She had survived, but barely. Half her crew was dead. Her ship would never fly again. But it was over. The war was over. Fleet Admiral Soman received surrender offers from over 100 council species. Some begged for mercy. Some offered to pay tribute. Some just asked to be left alone. She accepted all surrenders, but demanded no tribute. Humanity had not fought for wealth or power. They had fought for justice. President Hyunwoo made one final broadcast. He stood beside the bodies of those who had fallen at Nexus Station. Behind him, the flags of every allied species flew together. "The war is over," he said. "The Galactic Council is dissolved. Their reign has ended not in glory, but in shame. We fought not for conquest, but for the right to exist as equals. We won not through cruelty, but through courage. And now we begin the hard work of building something better. To those species who fought with us, you have our gratitude and our friendship. To those who fought against us, you have our mercy. We do not seek revenge. We seek only peace. But let it be known across the galaxy. Humanity will never bow. We will never submit. We will never accept tyranny. And we will always stand with those who fight for freedom." He paused and looked directly at the camera. "Ambassador Jiwan, you wanted peace. You believed in a better future. You died trying to build it. Today we finish what you started. Today we create the galaxy you dreamed of. Rest well, your work is complete, and we will never forget." Across human space and beyond, people watched and wept. They wept for those who had died. They wept for the cost of victory. But they also wept with relief and hope. The war was over. The tyrants were defeated, and a new age was beginning.